Step out for show.
What's up, great?
Stepping out for show.
What's up, Jay Great?
Man, take that shit up. Look at Leah. Oh, man, y'all got her money with. She ain't fucking with it.
Jerriny Caples was 26 years old. She lived in Memphis and had 2 children. In November 2021, she went to pick up her boyfriend from prison following his release.
Get out my way! We're great play! We're great play again, bro. All right. Be great! Yeah! Be great! Yeah! Be great! Okay. Talk your shit, great. Talk your shit. Be great.
Free who, man? Big ball out.
Ain't no more free my dude, fuck.
Days later, she was found dead inside her vehicle. The location was South Memphis. She had been shot. Her body was in the driver's seat. There were no signs of a break-in, no missing belongings, and no known witnesses.
A loving mother, sister, and daughter now at the center of a murder investigation. Memphis police found the 25-year-old killed in the Nutbush neighborhood. The woman's family continues to mourn while police search for her killer in tonight's Manhunt Monday.
Her phone and purse were still inside the car. The area was quiet, and no one nearby reported hearing anything unusual. Police responded. An investigation was opened. No one was arrested. No suspect was named. There were no updates from law enforcement beyond the initial confirmation of her death. The man she picked up from prison was not publicly linked to the case by authorities. His status remains unclear. Family members started asking questions. They held press conferences, vigils, and posted online about the timeline and the lack of answers. They asked the public to help fill in the missing pieces. There are questions about what happened between the time she picked him up and when her body was discovered. Where did she go? Who was she with? What conversations took place? What surveillance footage, phone records, or text messages were reviewed? This case remains unsolved. No public progress has been reported. The timeline is limited. The official statements are minimal. This story will examine what is known, what is missing, and what questions remain unanswered in the death of Jerriny Caples. It begins with a pickup at a prison gate and ends with a murder that is yet to be explained. What happened during those missing hours? Who was the last person to see her alive? And why has no one been held responsible?
He took my little sister for nothing, man. She ain't do nothing to nobody.
Candace Parker and her father are searching for a killer. Memphis police say 25-year-old Jerriny Caples was murdered last November in Nutbush.
She told me she was going to school, and when she left school, she was going to meet somebody to get some shoes. I guess she never made it that far.
Parker says she tried calling her sister, but her calls went unanswered. Something Parker says was highly unusual for the mother of 2. So Parker went to her sister's house looking for answers.
When I got to my sister's house, I felt it. Something was wrong. And that's when the detectives told us we had to stay there for a minute. When they said that, I already knew. My sister was gone.
Parker says detectives told them they found her sister's body inside her white Jeep Cherokee on Prince Street.
She got shot in the head, came out through the back, through her side. I never think I'd put my sister in a casket, man. We just want justice for her, that's it.
Parker believes the gunman may have known her sister and says she may have been the target of a robbery.
I just want justice for my sister. I can't sleep. I can't eat, y'all. I need help. I need help.
Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Jerriny Caples was a 26-year-old woman living in Memphis, Tennessee. She was a mother of 2 young children and known within her community as someone deeply connected to her family. Friends and relatives describe her as hardworking, loyal, and outgoing, someone who cared deeply for her children and those around her. She maintained a strong support system and often posted affectionate content about her kids and close family members on social media. At the time of her death, Jerriny was in a long-term relationship with a man who had been serving time in prison. This relationship had continued through his incarceration. She remained supportive during his sentence and kept in regular communication with him. There are no official reports that indicated she ever filed complaint or expressed fear related to the relationship. However, after her death, friends and acquaintances hinted at a possible underlying tension in the relationship, something that had never reached legal or public documentation. In early November 2021, Jerriny's boyfriend was released from prison. Reports indicate that she personally went to pick him up, a gesture that showed the level of trust and closeness they shared. Her decision to bring him back into her life, and possibly her home, showed her commitment to helping him re-enter society. Her social media accounts around that time suggested she was hopeful and positive about the reunion. There were no alarming posts or warnings. She did not express concerns publicly or privately in a way that led to any documented red flags. Those close to her assumed she was doing what she believed was right, supporting someone she had invested time in emotionally. After her death, some of her friends suggested that Jerriny might have overlooked early warning signs or felt emotionally pressured to keep the relationship intact. Still, none of these claims were substantiated through police reports, domestic violence filings, or protective orders. Less than 72 hours after her boyfriend's release from prison, Jerriny Caples was found dead. On or around the third day following his return, she was discovered inside her vehicle, unresponsive, in the South Memphis area. Law enforcement later confirmed she had been shot.
A loving mother, sister, and daughter now at the center of a murder investigation. Memphis police found the 25-year-old killed in the Nutbush neighborhood. The woman's family continues to mourn while police search for her killer in tonight's Manhunt Monday.
The precise time of death was not disclosed publicly. Her body was found inside her own car, and it became immediately clear to responding officers that she had been fatally injured. The cause of death was gunshot wounds. No weapon was recovered at the scene. Initial public reports stated that no suspects were arrested or named. The case was considered open but inactive within a few weeks. Police confirmed they were investigating but provided no updates. No known eyewitnesses came forward. There was no immediate confession, surveillance footage released to the public, or a concrete timeline provided between her last known whereabouts and the moment her body was discovered. The vehicle was found in a relatively quiet location near where Jerriny lived. It was not in a remote or wooded area, but was parked in an inconspicuous location within a Memphis neighborhood. According to police and media reports, the crime scene did not show visible signs of a struggle. There was no broken glass, no forced entry into the vehicle, and no items appeared to have been stolen. Her identification, personal belongings, and phone were still inside the car. The presence of her belongings indicated that robbery was likely not the motive. Instead, the crime had characteristics of a targeted shooting, though that possibility was never confirmed by police. The area where her body was found was cordoned off for investigation, but within a few days, law enforcement cleared the scene and made no public disclosures regarding potential suspects, fingerprints, or ballistic evidence. Authorities arrived shortly after the body was discovered, but their presence yielded minimal new information for the family or the public. The lack of transparency added to the family frustration and the community's speculation. Why do you think there were no public updates about the investigation? Could this case have been prevented with earlier intervention? Should law enforcement be required to give families more transparency when there are no suspects? Was this a case of intimate partner violence that went undetected? What steps can be taken to prevent such unresolved tragedies from being forgotten? The Memphis Police Department issued a brief public statement confirming that a homicide had occurred and that a young woman had been killed. However, they refrained from naming any persons of interest, and no arrests were made. The lack of transparency led to growing frustration among Memphis residents and Caples' family members. Many question why law enforcement appear to be moving so slowly in what seemed to be a solvable case. Jerriny's boyfriend, the last known person to see her alive, was not officially named as a suspect. It was unclear whether he had been interviewed, detained, or even located following her death. Community members began voicing their concerns over what they viewed as a delayed and inadequate investigative response. The lack of immediate action prompted questions about whether crucial evidence had been lost and if key opportunities to secure interviews or surveillance footage had passed. Despite these issues, the Memphis Police Department provided little more than surface-level updates to the public. There were no press conferences, no published timeline of events, and no public calls for specific witnesses. This silence would only amplify public concern in the weeks that followed. As days turned into weeks with no progress in the case, Jerriny Caples' family stepped forward with urgency. Her father, Jerry Caples, appeared on local television, pleading for answers. He stated that his daughter had been loyal, kind, and undeserving of such a fate. He called for accountability and implored anyone with information to come forward.
And tonight, a family searching for answers 2 years after the homicide of Jerriny Caples. Our Zaria Oates sat down with the family about their search for the suspect and the grief they manage every day.
Nearly 2 years ago, Jerriny Caples was shot and killed across town from her family home here in Fraser, over in the Nutbush area. Her family and friends continue to look for answers every single day.
Please speak up for my sister, y'all. Please.
What happened to Jerriny Caples is something no family prepares for.
She was found in the back of the vehicle, slumped over on the driver's side. She had been shot once in the head.
This video shows a suspect leaving the scene. 2 years later, the person still hasn't been identified.
The murder was picked up by a door cam, leaving the vehicle, so which kind of led me to believe that the person might stay somewhere in the area.
So he searches the area frequently, looking for any clues he can find. A tragedy no one can wrap their head around.
Loving, kind, sweet, don't bother nobody. And for them to take her life for nothing, it's hurting me, it's hurting my dad, it's hurting her mom.
It was a senseless act of violence. That's all it was. And I hate that.
An act of violence, leaving every one of her family members searching for closure.
And I'm not going to rest. I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to stop screaming justice for Jerriny.
Her father, Jerry Caples, does believe someone knows what happened to his daughter. If you know any information at all, please contact the Memphis Police Department's Crime Stoppers at 901-528-CASH. In Fraser, I'm Zaria Oates.
The family expressed their dissatisfaction with how the case was being handled. They questioned the police department's lack of communication and criticized what they perceived as a dismissive attitude toward their grief and search for justice. According to relatives, requests for case updates were either ignored or met with vague responses that offered no clarity. Determined not to let her death be forgotten, the family held vigils and memorial services across the city. These gatherings, often held near the location where Jerriny's body was found or at her childhood home, served both as a remembrance and a demand for justice. They also began leveraging digital platforms. Her sister and mother used Facebook and Instagram to share photos, video tributes, and their frustrations with the lack of legal movement. Their emotional posts gained traction across Memphis and beyond, prompting interest from journalists, bloggers, and true crime content creators. They also reached out directly to podcast hosts, YouTubers, and independent investigators, sharing timelines, phone records, and text message screenshots they believed could help. They were not content to wait for an update. They began building their own form of awareness and advocacy in parallel to the official investigation. Jerriny's story quickly resonated across Memphis. In response to the family's public appeals, local community members mobilized in a variety of ways. Facebook groups and online forums were created in her name. These spaces allowed people to share updates, rumors, theories, and support for her grieving family. Hashtag campaigns, including hashtag Justice for Jerriny, gained traction on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Local influencers and community organizers helped spread the word about her death, emphasizing the perceived injustice and encouraging followers to pressure the police for answers. Offline, grassroots efforts included community-led marches and candlelight vigils. Many of these events were organized by residents who had never met Jerriny, but were disturbed by the silence surrounding her case. They carried signs with her photo, shared flyers, and passed out contact information for local tip lines. Flyers were also posted in surrounding neighborhoods, gas stations, shopping centers, and outside police precincts. These included details of the case and the message that someone, somewhere, knew what had happened. At each vigil, speakers reminded attendees that this was not just a family's tragedy but a community issue, one that spoke to broader problems of transparency, justice, and the protection of women in vulnerable situations. Residents urged one another to stay engaged and not let the case disappear from public attention. Despite the public outcry and the family's constant advocacy, weeks turned into months without any significant developments in the investigation. The boyfriend, who had just been released from prison days before Jerriny's death, reportedly disappeared from the public eye. Community members speculated whether he had fled, was in hiding, or had simply been overlooked by investigators.
Talking about why I ain't saying nothing. What the fuck? I ain't gotta post nothing on Facebook. Let me grieve how I'm grieving him? Let me grieve how I'm grieving him. I ain't gotta grieve. I ain't gotta go live crying and doing all that cap ass. Want some likes and shares and shit. I ain't gotta do all that. Yeah. I need junkie, broke ass bitch. Man, all you hold junkie hell. On God. On my little girl, y'all junkie hell. All you hold that was just at my house. Erica, LaQuisha, Candy, all you junk ass, broke ass bitches, you know what I'm saying, was just in my face here, and now y'all getting on Facebook with all this cap ass shit. You hoe junkie hell. On God. None of you hoe having nothing at all.
As more time passed, theories about a possible cover-up began circulating online. Some believed that the case had been deprioritized because of systemic issues within the Memphis justice system. Others questioned whether investigators had collected and analyzed all available evidence, including cell phone records, location tracking, and surveillance footage from nearby areas. The Memphis Police Department did not hold follow-up press conferences, and no additional suspects were named publicly. Calls from the family for answers were again met with silence. It was unclear if the case was still being actively pursued or if it had gone cold. This absence of progress added to the growing mistrust between the public and law enforcement. The sense that a young woman's life had been taken and that no one would be held accountable spread frustration throughout the city. The Caples family refused to give up. They continued to share reminders of Jerriny's story on social media and organize anniversary memorials to keep the case in the public eye. Independent content creators released timelines, voiceovers, and maps reconstructing the possible final movements of both Jerriny and her boyfriend. Yet, as of 2025, no one has been arrested. No public updates have been given regarding leads, evidence, or interviews. And Jerriny Caples' children are still being raised without their mother, while her family continues to demand justice from a system that is yet to deliver it. Months after the death of 26-year-old Jerriny Caples, interest in her case began to expand beyond Memphis, Tennessee. With no arrests, limited police updates, and growing frustration from the public, several independent true crime YouTube channels, bloggers, and podcasters began investigating the circumstances of her death. These creators focus heavily on the final days of Jerriny's life, particularly the timeline surrounding the days she picked up her boyfriend from prison and the hours leading up to when her body was discovered. Many pointed out a notable inconsistency. There was a time gap of several hours during which Jerriny's whereabouts were unclear. Family members reported that she was unreachable by phone. Her last known communications were reportedly brief and vague. According to independent timelines reconstructed using Facebook activity and secondary witness accounts, she was last seen alive in the early afternoon, but was not reported found until hours later in the evening, already deceased in her vehicle. The missing hours raised significant concerns. Why wasn't a timeline provided by police? Was her phone tracked or pinged? Had anyone spoken to the boyfriend during those hours? These were questions that creators began pushing publicly. In the absence of answers, speculation grew. Some channels uncovered criminal records indicating that the boyfriend had prior run-ins with the law, including a past that allegedly involved domestic violence or controlling behavior toward partners. While none of these records have been confirmed publicly by law enforcement, Commentators noted that such a history should have made him a prime person of interest in her death. Interview clips with family members and community organizers revealed subtle but persistent suspicions that Jerriny may have been living in fear. A few friends described conversations where she hinted at wanting to help him get back on his feet, but felt emotionally overwhelmed. These details were not reported in early media coverage, but surfaced during podcast discussions and live streams. The motive, according to some independent creators, may have involved control, either emotional, financial, or personal. The narrative that began to emerge was that Jerriny might have believed she was helping someone reintegrate into society, but instead walked into a volatile situation. A petition was launched on Change.org demanding updates from the Memphis Police Department and asking that Jerriny's case be classified as a priority investigation. Within weeks, thousands had signed, citing concerns about a lack of urgency in the broader issue of unsolved cases involving Black women. A GoFundMe campaign was also launched by the family. Initially set up to assist with funeral expenses, the campaign was later expanded to cover legal consultations and private investigative services. The campaign page stated the family's belief that justice will not come without public pressure. Supporters donated, shared, and spread the fundraiser in solidarity. Influential podcasters began featuring the case in full-length episodes. Some released multi-part series exploring the timeline, while others invited criminologists and former detectives to discuss the case from a procedural standpoint. Several of these episodes went viral, with comment sections filled with viewers calling out law enforcement for remaining silent and demanding transparency. YouTube videos breaking down police response times, missed investigative opportunities, and gaps in public statements received tens of thousands of views. These videos pointed out that Memphis law enforcement had not released any suspect sketches, phone records, security footage updates, or formal suspect names. The result was a noticeable spike in online viewership and public interest. Many noted that without the efforts of online creators, the case might have faded entirely from public memory. As more eyes turned toward the case, so did amateur investigations and online sleuthing. Within true crime forums and comment threads, patterns began to emerge. Many focused on the boyfriend. Several content creators and users highlighted that he had both motive and opportunity. Being picked up by Jerriny just after release, he would have likely been the last person to see her alive. Yet his name was never officially tied to the case by law enforcement. Some speculated that lack of cooperation or resources may have hindered the investigation. Unconfirmed claims surfaced from individuals claiming to know the couple. These individuals alleged that the relationship had been marked by controlling behavior, including emotional manipulation and isolation from friends. Others claimed that there were prior threats, although no official documentation confirmed this. Still, these claims fueled the suspicion that Jerriny's death may have been a case of intimate partner violence, possibly escalating without warning. Alternate theories were also proposed. Some speculated that third-party involvement was possible, perhaps an old conflict, jealousy, or misunderstanding that led to the fatal shooting. A few suggested that Jerriny may have been targeted after reconnecting with someone from her past while trying to help her boyfriend readjust. Despite growing speculation, Memphis police never issued any public confirmation of a suspect. The lack of formal updates left the public without clarity, while online commentary only grew louder. Some critics of the investigation argued that law enforcement may have intentionally avoided naming the boyfriend without solid evidence. Others believe fear of litigation or public backlash might have contributed to the silence. Through all this, Jerriny's family refused to stop fighting. Each year on the anniversary of her death, family members and supporters hold candlelight vigils in her honor. These events take place both at the site where her body was found and near her childhood home. Attendees wear shirts bearing her face, hold signs demanding answers, and share stories about her life. Jerriny's 2 children are now being raised by her parents. According to interviews, the family prioritizes preserving her memory for children and explaining to them, in age-appropriate terms, what happened to their mother. Photos of her smiling with her kids are often shared at events to highlight the person she was beyond the headlines. The Caples family has also taken active steps toward justice beyond the court of public opinion. They retained private legal assistance to explore potential civil action and hired private investigators to re-examine the case. These professionals are reviewing phone records, seeking out new witnesses, and working with the family to reconstruct the missing timeline. Public appearances by the family continue across platforms. From local news interviews to podcast guest spots, the Caples family uses every opportunity to keep Jerriny's case in front of the public. Their message remains consistent. Silence is not an option, and justice requires persistence. Despite time passing and no arrest being made, the family's commitment has ensured that the story of Jerriny Caples is not forgotten. What remains is a community's unanswered questions, a family's relentless pursuit of truth, and a growing demand for transparency and accountability in cases like this. More than 3 years after the murder of 26-year-old Jerriny Caples, there are still no charges filed, no suspect arrested, and no clear answers from law enforcement. The silence has left a series of unresolved questions that continue to frustrate both the family and the public. The most pressing question remains: why was no one ever charged in her murder? Jerriny was last seen alive after she picked up her boyfriend from prison. Within 72 hours, she was found shot to death inside her vehicle in South Memphis. From the beginning, her family believed that someone close to her was responsible, particularly pointing to the man she had picked up. Despite the suspicion and the timing of events, police have not named him as a suspect, nor have they revealed any reasons for not charging anyone. This leads to further scrutiny of the investigative process. Did law enforcement pursue all possible digital and forensic evidence? As a public record, there is no indication that digital forensics were used extensively. No statements have been made about whether Jerriny's phone, the vehicle's GPS data, or any digital communication between her and her boyfriend was extracted and analyzed. The question remains whether these basic investigative tools were utilized or vital digital trails were ignored in the early days of the investigation. There's also been no public mention of surveillance footage from the area where her car was discovered. South Memphis contains multiple residential and business cameras, yet no footage has been released showing who last entered or exited her car. There are no known witness statements, and no timeline has been confirmed publicly by police. Similarly, her phone records and text messages have not been referenced in any official statements. If accessed, they could provide context about her final movements, last conversations, or any threats or conflicts. But again, the absence of updates raises questions about whether these standard investigative steps were ever taken. Was the boyfriend interviewed and released, or never thoroughly investigated? This question continues to stir tension between the public and authorities. The Memphis Police Department has never formally named her boyfriend as a suspect or a person of interest, even though he was one of the last individuals to see her alive. Family members have publicly stated that they believe he was never properly questioned or detained. There has been no confirmation that he was subjected to a polygraph test, surveillance, or digital monitoring after her death. No arrest, no charges, and no public record of investigative action directed toward the person most commonly linked to her final known hours has left many questioning the integrity or direction of the case. As of mid-2025, the case remains officially unsolved. The Memphis Police Department maintains that the investigation is active, but has refused to comment on the existence of any leads, persons of interest, or case status updates. The Caples family continues to make regular appeals to the public, urging anyone with knowledge of the events surrounding Jerriny's death to come forward. They've organized vigils, participated in interviews, and coordinated with advocacy groups to keep the pressure on local authorities. Despite these efforts, law enforcement has not held any public briefings, issued new bulletins, or provided forensic updates. Tip lines remain open, and local community leaders have made calls for justice during public events and rallies. However, no major breakthroughs have been reported. The last known public update from police came in 2022, when they stated they were still investigating and working all angles. As it stands, the community is left with a case where the victim is known, the possible suspect is known, but the evidence has either not been developed or not pursued publicly. This ongoing silence has prompted speculation of missteps, delays, or disinterest in solving a case involving a young black woman in a working-class neighborhood. Others believe that the initial 72 hours considered critical in any homicide case, were mishandled or under-resourced. The lack of transparency has added to the distrust many families face when dealing with unsolved violent crimes in their communities. Now that the case remains unresolved and the investigation appears stagnant, viewers are left to form their own conclusions based on the information, or lack thereof, that is publicly available. Do you think law enforcement failed his family? The Caples family has said they were given little communication, and few investigative steps appear to have been shared. Should families be better informed during open investigations? Even if the case is ongoing, should authorities be more transparent in unsolved cases? In cases where there is no risk of compromising leads or suspects, should the police release more information to the public in order to assist with tips or witness identification? Was Jerriny's murder a case of intimate partner violence, or was someone else involved? All signs point to someone close to her, particularly the timing of her death following her boyfriend's release. But with no direct evidence shared, is it possible that the real perpetrator has not yet been named? Why are so many cases like this left unresolved? True crime cases involving Black women and domestic relationships often receive limited media attention and fewer investigative resources. Is this another example of systemic failure or under-prioritization? What more could have been done in the first 72 hours? Could immediate arrest, forensic analysis, or seizure of digital devices have changed the course of this case? Were search warrants requested? Was enough manpower assigned during the initial response? The murder of Jerriny Caples is not just an isolated crime. It represents a wider issue affecting victims whose cases receive limited attention, minimal investigative updates, and no closure. The questions remain numerous, and the silence from authorities continues to frustrate those still seeking answers. While the case is listed as open, it is, by all visible measures, cold. Unless new evidence emerges, or unless the public applies consistent pressure, it is possible that Jerriny's death will remain unsolved, another name added to a growing list of victims still waiting for justice. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.